welcome to QI, where tonight we're obsessed with films and fame. Parading their false modesty down the red carpet tonight are the very famous David Mitchell, the fantastically glamorous John Sessions, and hell's teeth, it's only Emma Thompson. Who's that bloke getting out of the car behind her? No, not him, the one behind him. You know, the curly hair. The one off the telly. Who is he?
It's Alan Davis!
So it is! And tonight our buzzers have come over all cinematic. David goes... Emma goes... John goes...
There's no business like show business, like no business I know.
And Alan goes...
That's all, folks.
And so it's lights, camera, and action as we roll out the first question. Now, you're all very good at what you do, but what is this picture trying to tell you?
Show business.
Oh, Johnny got there first, yes.
It's painted by Man Ray of Ingres Odalisque, and it's known as the violon d'Ingres, because it's a kind of a pun. But the violon d'Ingres is actually more than a hobby, because the famous French painter, Ingres, was a brilliant violinist. So it's like a very, very hotly pursued hobby, a violon d'Ingres.
Well, what you've done is here you've saved us a lot of time by being completely and 100% right in every particular. That's very good, yeah. It's a photograph, because it's a photograph of a real model, Kiki of Montparnasse, who was a favourite model of a lot of the surrealist artists.
Yeah.
And this is a painting by Ingres, the neoclassicist French painter, who died in...
1864.
Are you going to be like this all the way through?
You're absolutely right. This is a very complicated point we have to get across. The French have a phrase, which is Ingres violin, which means somebody who does something they're not famous for, but does it almost as well, i.e. they have a whole other side, a whole other string to their bow. And in the case of Ingres, it was that he was a very talented violinist, as well as a great painter. And so to a question about a man who definitely has one more string to his bow. How would you like to have Cedric Gibbons nude on your mantelpiece?
It's not Stanley Gibbons, the philatelist.
No! He's a Hollywood figure, remarkable Hollywood figure, Cedric Gibbons. He was the premier art director stroke production designer of Hollywood for MGM. And in 1928, he was asked to design something. What might that have been? No.
The Oscar.
Thank you. Oh. The Oscar. And not only did he design it, he won 11 of them. He was nominated for 36 and won 11. Almost all Oscars, as you know, were won by Walt Disney, who won how many?
109.
26.
20, yeah.
And Cedric Gibbons won 11, and all the rest went to Emma Thompson. Oh, look, she is.
Lovely winning smile.
Do you remember which one that was? Sense and Sensibility or Howard's Way?
Howard's End. Howard's Way.
I nearly said Howard's Way.
That interesting boat script I wrote.
But you were nominated for 3 others.
Yes.
Do you remember what they were?
Remains
of the Day, In the Name of the Father.
Best Supporting Actress. And you were also nominated for Sense and Sensibility as Best...
OK, I forgot.
I can remember all the GCSEs I did. I would definitely remember every Oscar nomination. I think when, like, the rest of my brain had melted and I fed through a tube, those 5 names of films would still come out.
The best film one year was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Do you know what? They altered the Oscar to some extent.
They made him a midget.
They made him one big one and 7 little ones.
Oh. I mean, it must have been a grim year, because that is a boring cartoon.
I made an Oscar. I actually made a genuine Oscar. I went to the factory in Chicago where they were made.
Is it a mould, like a jelly mould?
Well, there is a mould, but it's pure metal, Britannium.
Or do you have to hew it?
When you buff it.
If you have to,
a damn good buffing.
If you have to hew it, I mean, I'm not being rude, but if I was winning an Oscar this year, I'd say, can I have one of the ones made by the professional? That one, Stephen Fry pulls that.
I was well
wonky.
supervised.
Oh,
To be
right.
honest, I did a bit of buffing.
Right.
On the bum area,
And then
I
dipping.
bet.
You bad. You're a very bad man. Yes, a little bit of... a good buttock flossing. And dipping him in nickel and then in that gold. It's very...
So you didn't really make...
No,
I mean, it's like the Queen pulling a pint.
Basically. That's more or less what it was like. Thank you so much. So, who was the best actor in your year? You were best actress.
Al Pacino.
And your other Oscar, of course, was for Best Adapted Screenplay for
Yeah.
Sense and Sensibility. I should have won that Oscar, as a matter of fact.
Actually, yes, you should.
Yeah.
You rescued it.
Yeah.
Yes, I had one of those steam-powered computers, and the screen had done something to the script. It had transmogrified into hieroglyphs, into just... not words, not anything that I could recognise, just funny shapes. I got the bloke round, the computer bloke round, and he couldn't work it out. So finally, I took the computer out of the wall, still in my dressing gown, got in a taxi, went with the computer round to Stephen's house, sat it down and said, please, find my script. And I did it like that because I'm an actress. I don't ever ask people and if I'm upset, I make sure people know it. And he said, oh, OK, but it took him 7 hours. And Hugh was with you at the time.
Advantages in being a nerd.
Probably what really happened was he couldn't do it. He thought, oh, shit, I can't
I'd better
let on.
quickly
I can't
write
let-
one.
I'll just write. It's much quicker if I just adapt the novel.
And I looked at it and
Well,
thought,
that's
you know, I'd forgotten, obviously, because my brain doesn't hold any information for any length of time at all. I just looked at it and thought, that must be my script, and I handed it in.
Yeah. And you
I'll
won.
send the Oscar round tomorrow.
Thank you. Now, time to test your hearing. What is this a representation of?
It's Roy Chubby Brown eating a hobnob.
It's Gladstone eating an ice cream and then being beamed up by the Martians.
It's giving birth.
Oh, yes. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's exactly what it is. It's a lamb being born.
God.
In fact, this is a sound effect. We can actually see the sound being made.
Now, has he listened to lambs being born? And then Dan Arrows, he said, no one knows what a lamb being born sounds like. I'll do any old crap.
She actually...
I'll drop a towel.
She's oddly named Lizzie Calf, oddly enough. And she used to do the sound effects for the Archers, amongst other things. She's now our sound wizard. But there is a name to this science of sound effects as used in movies. What sound recordists need is clean dialogue. And all the sound effects, footsteps and other noises, guns being cocked, the rustle of clothing, the lighting of a cigarette, almost all of that is done afterwards by someone called a Foley artist. And here's an example of some of the early Foley artists making their noises. And all kinds of different things are used. If you close your eyes, let the audience see how it's being made. You see if... Alan, when I say close your eyes...
Now, by the way, when I open them, you won't all have gone, will you?
A lamb on my head.
You close your eyes, we'll let the audience and everyone at home see some more sounds being made. See if you can see what these are. So, what was that?
Guillotine. That's
Someone
basically
has done it.
Guillotine, guillotine, all right. Very good. How was it made?
with a guillotine and a person. And a bucket.
They wanted the sound of cabbages being chopped up, and so they had to kill a guy.
Oh,
to get that.
very good. It was
My
indeed.
eyes shut long after the sound.
I'm still sitting with my
I'm so obedient.
It was indeed a cabbage. You slide a knife along a scaffolding pole and then chop a cabbage and drop it into the bucket. It's pretty good.
Saves
Got
the
another
life
one.
of
Close
an
your eyes.
aristocrat.
Okay.
And what was that?
Someone pretending
So
to be a
horse
horse.
clapping.
I mean, that sounds exactly like some coconut shells.
Oh, you're so
Coconut
cynical.
shell.
A two-legged horse.
Yeah.
Wearing some awkward shoes.
There you are. Here they are. That's it. You've all done.
It's a horse clapping.
Don't you think it sounds like a horse?
It does sound like a horse.
You've seen it many times in
Yeah.
films without knowing that it was coconuts. If you see the visual thing, then it works.
the
Another
same-
one. Another
at the
one.
same time.
Close your
Yeah,
eyes.
yeah.
Yeah. What do you think this sound is?
It's fire. It's a fire, isn't
Yes,
it?
fire. Exactly. They use this for fire, ripping through straw and things like that.
On all
Good, that
the...
one.
Now, here's a good one. This is weird, this, because you see it and you think, no, bollocks. It's a piece of paper coming out of an envelope, right?
We're taking off a shirt.
No. This is what they genuinely used at Elstree for the doors in Star Wars, electric doors. Paper being taken out of an envelope. Simple as that. You watch a bit of Star Wars now and you see the doors open, you think, oh, yes, so it is. So anyway, we thank Lizzie Carf, our sound expert, and we apologise to her. She's in tears now, having been mocked by David Mitchell.
No, I'm
in
not.
particular.
Look, I'm perfectly willing to accept that with the pictures
Yeah,
there, then
you're
you're going
right.
to buy the whole effect.
Yeah.
But, you know...
Well, we invite you all to go home and use your own sound effects for your YouTube films, and I'm sure you'll come up with all kinds of exciting things for vomit and sexual activities and so on. Now, speaking of soundtracks, where have you heard this before?
In the green room about half an hour.
Tom and Jerry.
You might have heard it in Tom and Jerry, actually. You might well.
It's a sound effect scream that has been library stocked and is used repeatedly.
Johnny, 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 I'm going to have to give you points. This is right. It's been used in, it's estimated, about 140 movies, including every Indiana Jones movie, every Star Wars movie. It's been used in...
Likely lads.
Madagascar, Planet of the Apes, Lord of the Rings, only two of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, not all three, oddly enough. Toy Story,
How disappointed they were.
I don't know.
We're going to have to go elsewhere for the third film.
Reservoir Dogs. It's in Batman Returns,
People
Poltergeist.
just use it for a joke, then? Have we got to use that scream?
You're kind of right. It was used as a stock scream, and a guy called Ben Burt, who was a young, up-and-coming sound effects editor, heard it in lots of films, and he is now a very successful sound editor, and he and his friends make it a point, whenever they sound edit a film, to put this scream in somewhere. Hence, it is in all kinds of movies. On YouTube, someone has compiled 23 different films with the scream, showing the scream in it. We can't show it because we'd have to pay all kinds of money, but I wish we could. Anyway, it's believed to be a man called Sheb Wooley singing, and it starts on the note of C. There's Sheb Wooley. It descends through 4 semitones to G sharp, and he used it in a film called Distant Drums in 1951. It's called the Wilhelm scream for some reason, and you can hear it again, C, semitones, G sharp.
It's quite a warm scream, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It's not... You're not really traumatised by it.
Yeah.
No.
It's not as if you're being raped by a warthog or anything. It's not. The most ubiquitous line of film dialogue. Do you know what that was? Apparently, this line, a survey of 150 American feature films from 38 to 74, showed it was used at least once in 84% of Hollywood productions, more than once in 17%.
Is it? Why are you telling me this?
That's a very good one, because that is one of the really annoying cliches, isn't it? Like the other one that really annoys me is, "Don't you die on me."
Oh.
Shut up.
Which almost never means actually on the person.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a bad feeling about this. Oh, shut up.
Is that an order, sir?
Yeah.
Well, since you asked me, Lieutenant, yes, it is.
Oh, the one that I always really want to punch is when they're about to go on an operation and they go, "Showtime."
Oh, yeah. No.
Oh,
This is what we trained for.
Gentlemen, we have a situation here.
Yeah.
Or the other one that really drives me mad is, "I'm getting too old for this shit." Oh. Christ. Christ. But anyway, apparently the line is, "Let's get out of here."
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, what you heard was the Wilhelm scream, the most ubiquitous sound effect in film history. Speaking of ubiquitous sounds, what's the good thing about an English accent in Hollywood?
You're always a villain, I know that much.
That's basically it,
Or
isn't
you're
it?
gay.
Or gay.
And often a gay
related.
villain.
Or a gay villain.
Or people think you're Australian, so you get bar work.
There's a sort of a high-octane version of the English villain, which is to get an English villain to play a German villain.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which
as
they-
in the Die Hard
As in
franchise.
the Die Hard film, which is almost has some of my favourite dialogue of our great friend Alan Rickman, when he says, after he shot the man's head, "Mr. Kage, I will count to 3. There will not be a 4. And he shoots the head and goes out. And then he goes downstairs later and he goes, Mr. Takagi won't be joining us for the rest of his life.
That is brilliant. Oh, brilliant. And there you see him in, I think, on the left there in Die Hard, and on the right, I think
Robin
he's
Hood.
giving his Sheriff of Nottingham. And the extraordinary thing about Robin Hood, I mean, the two most famous Robin Hood movies, I suppose, are the Errol Flynn one and the Kevin Costner one. Both Errol Flynn and Kevin Costner basically playing him as American. But
Kevin Costner, no bones about it.
completely American.
Just come straight from the airport.
Yeah.
In a Virgin limo service.
I don't...
Putting his tights on in the back.
Kevin Costner would do
I
it.
can't, to be honest, I can't think it would be a better film if he was struggling with a kind of Dick Van Dyke copy.
I just wonder, genuinely, is it because we're too good-natured to moan about it?
We're the last country left who won't scream racism.
Exactly. We don't shout, it's so racist to make us the villain.
Or is it that, you know, the villains are kind of have to be fiendishly clever and they suspect us of something Machiavellian deep down somewhere, always?
And sort of tyrannical, because we are the country they fought originally to create their democracy.
And we're essentially unwholesome, aren't we? Really?
Unwholesome,
You know, and we have bad teeth. That's the thing, they really can't forgive us.
The British
for.
Book of Teeth in The Simpsons is one
Alan's
of the
got
great...
great teeth. But he does this thing where he's able to talk without actually letting his lips touch his teeth. So... Alan is so good at playing villains, as you all know. But he hates being good at playing villains. He wants to play the lovely guy in the white shirt who comes in, you know.
He did, in Sense and Sensibility.
He did as Colonel Brandon, absolutely. But he was at a party once, and, you know, kids are fantastic. They always say the thing they're not meant to say. And this kid said to Alan... Yes? Why do you always play villains? You know, the last thing you're going to say to him. And Alan went, I don't play villains. I play very interesting people.
Now, I'm going to give you a few English actors. I want you to tell me the villains they've played in Hollywood movies. Peter Cushing.
Show business.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, then don't buzz. Let other people have a chance, yes.
Dracula.
No, I don't think he ever played Dracula. And not in a Hollywood movie, certainly.
Is it Tarkin?
Tarkin, very good. The Grand Moff Tarkin.
Yeah.
Stephen Burkoff.
Oh, Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop, very good. And Rambo, in fact, if you remember.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Lee.
Show business.
Yeah, but Hollywood movies.
Scaramanga, Man with the Golden Gun?
He did, that's kind of made in Britain too, but actually, so...
He was a bad wizard in the Hobbit films.
He was a very bad wizard, wasn't he? He was an awfully naughty wizard.
Turncoat wizard.
Though he was very angry not to be cast in the third one. He was furious.
Was he?
He
He hardly
publicity.
catches a break, does he?
No, he doesn't. He was also in Star Wars, apparently.
Is Christopher Plummer British?
Well, Canadian actually.
Oh.
Yeah. I had a friend who worked with Christopher Plummer in the film, and it's one of those things that he arrived at the airport, and, you know, the runner was there to say, well, you know, go straight to the bar of the hotel, and Chris will be there, so don't mention The Sound of Music. OK. So he stays around, hangs there, you know, into the bar. Christopher Plummer comes in, and then half an hour later, he was playing Edelweiss on the piano. That's weird.
What did he see in the Baroness in the first place? She was vile. She was a bit stiff and grumpy and not very good with children.
No.
Do you think it would have been better if they'd made the Baroness just obviously wonderful
Lovely.
and gorgeous? And you think, what's he
You know
bothering?
what she should
Why
be?
is he shagging the staff?
She should have been Mary Poppins, and then they could have had a Maria Mary face-off.
Like Alien versus Predator.
Yeah, I can get hat stands out of carpet bags. Yeah, well, I can make a whole outfit out of curtains in 2 hours for 6 people.
And snap my fingers and make drawers open and close.
Yeah.
I can defeat the Nazis and then actually trump car
That is the winner.
The thing that's never mentioned in that film is that he's an old naval captain
Yes,
from
that's right.
presumably the Austro-Hungarian Navy,
Yeah.
now living in a country with no coastline. So he'd be quite pissed off turning up for work. First day, you know...
rowing around a lake.
We just signed the Treaty of Versailles, very exciting. What next?
What's funny about The Sound of Music is that it's just the sort of picture Hitler would have liked if only the people hadn't been running away from the Nazis.
It's probably true. It would have appealed to his sentimental...
Gemütlichkeit.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely right.
It's like that little Austrian dance.
Yeah.
I did a film with Julie Andrews, and it happened to be around the time there was the total eclipse. It was supposed to be in Cornwall, but we were filming on the Isle of Man, and we went onto a hillside to watch the total eclipse. And half the population of the Isle of Man, while this great cosmic miracle was going on, was staring at Julie Andrews. Going, "What?" The sun had gone out. We can't see her now. What's going on? Wonderful.
Yeah, just our luck. The one day Julie Andrews turns up and makes it.
I watched it on the telly because it wasn't happening where I was. It was on Sky News. And this is the thing where they really do know to the second when it's going to happen. And they still went there an hour early to film.
Oh.
And then they showed a replay of it, and the anchorman said, "And there's our old friend, the moon, very much getting in the way."
Anyway, the point is, if you're an English actor, there's a good living to be made being beaten up by American action stars. Now, speaking of stiff upper lips, what does it tell you about an Englishman if he spells his name with a double F at the front?
He's from the 15th century, I thought.
It might be.
Is it... OK, this is a bit of a reach. Once upon a time, there was a posh man with the son who developed a stammer. And his name was Fuchs. And in order to prevent himself being embarrassed by his poor son who had a stammer, he put two Fs in front of it so that everyone who had to introduce it instead had to go Fuchs as well as his son.
He'd have to conceal that fact from his son, because otherwise his son would try and pronounce both Fs.
Oh, no! No, the fact is, people think it's rather posh.
It's not a
But it's
double
not
F as
posh.
in music. You're supposed to say
No,
the noun
Fortissimo.
very loudly.
Yeah.
No, it's a mistake. It was a mistake that was made in the 18th century by people looking at their family records, and the way a capital F was handwritten in records, it looked like two small Fs, and there are people to this day who have the two small Fs. But actually, it's just a mistranscription.
They never put it in capital letters.
They never do, no. Two small Fs is the big... That's how it's officially spelt. Anyway, so yes, if your ancestors spelled their names with a double F, it meant they were either Welsh or semi-literate thickos, I'm afraid. So now, fame at last. What on earth is going on here, please? Nothing to see. Careful.
Show business.
Florence Foster Jenkins.
Very good, it is Florence. Tell us about Florence.
Florence Foster Jenkins was a very rich heiress.
Yeah.
She's actually a man.
She does see... Her breasts have tumbled rather far south, haven't they?
She used to rent out Carnegie Hall to do recitations. In fact, I think Maureen Lipman did a show about her.
She might well have...
She just wanted to be an opera singer. And
She wanted...
Yeah.
She was rich enough to rent
She could
out...
afford... But it became a cult, and she sold out. I mean, she could have sold out 10 times over the Carnegie Hall gig. Cole Porter was so enamoured of her that he wrote a song for her.
Did she not notice the whole audience pissing themselves?
Yeah. She did, but she rose magnificently above it. She did say, some say that I couldn't sing, but no one can say that I didn't sing. That's her thought there. Yeah, she was left a great deal of money when her father died. She sang Carnegie Hall at the age of 76. Sold out weeks in advance. 2,000 were turned away at the door. And it was $20 a piece, so she actually made a lot of money. It's about $400 a ticket in today's money.
If you paid to see that show,
Yeah.
you think at your first bit, you're laughing,
Yeah.
she's terrible. But the joke doesn't really go anywhere, does it? By the end, you're just
after the interval,
so
it's empty.
bored listening to this terrible singer.
It was visually quite interesting. She did her own costumes. She would change them regularly, telling the audience not to go away while she changed.
I used to do that to him, actually. Try to make sure that he couldn't get out when I was changing.
You did?
Yeah,
You
because
used
it
to
was very good fun.
She used to show me her breasts. Very embarrassing.
But it's fantastic effect I used to have on him
Yeah.
because I could do it now. I'm not going to, but I could. I can make him scream.
No, don't.
Not like that scream that we just heard, but a real, actual sort of scream of terror and fright. Just by appearing nude at the top of his stairs. And doing what I like to do, which is locking all the doors at the bottom, so that when he tried to get out of the way, as I came down the stairs going, yes, baby, they're all all yours, he couldn't get away. And by the end of which he was in a state of such extreme panic. And it's great to make someone very clever fall apart like that.
Well, anyway, publicity is what it's all about. There's no sense hiding a light under a bushel, which prompts me to ask, how did the ancient Greeks cover up the naughty bits on their statues?
They didn't, did they?
That's the point, they didn't.
But then the Victorians went round and chipped them all off. Is that any
Well,
proof?
earlier than the Victorians, actually. In the 16th century it started happening.
Chip them off.
Chip the
So
willies off the
They used to
statue.
collect... I collect Greek willies.
Yeah.
All the way round.
Somewhere in
Yeah.
in some antique shop somewhere there will be a huge barrel full of Greek willies.
Help yourself. I'm giving them free.
Spend 40 quid, you get a willy. It's 3,000 years old.
Well, there is a room in the Vatican which contains all the dissecta membra, all the chipped off bits. Well, there's a proud Greek statue of
He's about to
Hercules.
bash himself on the cock. That's to make yourself attractive. This shows that you're really ready.
But it was about 1860 or so. They started putting those horrible, sort of rather pervy-looking cabbage leaves around them.
Yeah, they did. It was really the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation in Europe. They had all these people like Calvin and Savonarola, who was a fierce opponent of all things pure. And suddenly, having been a very wild place, everything became incredibly... It was like a sort of 1950s America. You see, there's your
That's
big
like, it reminds me of Ruskin marrying Effie Gray and
Yes.
the great Victorian art critic, you know, married this very young girl and on the wedding night couldn't have anything to do with because he didn't know that naked women had pubic hair, had hair. He thought they all looked like that. And so he didn't shag her for 7 years. And finally she thought, hang on a minute, I'm not being shagged here. There's something wrong with this. So, and they divorced.
But, in fact, the sad thing about that story is it's not true. It's a lovely... It was first appeared in the 1960s. This idea that Ruskin didn't know that women had pubes and that was shocked by the idea of it and vomited and, you know...
It's true he didn't shag her, though, for
Yeah,
7
it
years.
seems to be so.
The ironic thing now, Stephen, is that women generally don't have pubes anymore.
Well, indeed.
This is
I
right.
kind of have a slightly fond memories
It's
of
something-
pubes from the 80s.
It's something called a Peruvian, isn't it?
There's something
Yes.
like that.
Yes.
And the excuse apparently is that pants is far too small.
Well, then
You can't get
bigger
your
pants
Yorkshire
and have a
Terrier
nice...
in the pants. Well, that's
bigger
what I
pants. Big pants, nice bush. What's wrong with that? Seems fine to me. Do you wax yourself down there, Danny?
Do you want to see
No,
it?
I don't want to see it! No, I do not! Oh, God.
You know I do it.
I know you would. She would. She'd envelop me in her
Lock the
skirt.
doors, lock the doors.
Oh,
Oh, ye faint of heart, leave immediately. Not you.
What's the
Yeah.
thing of the... This is the new thing. They're now... Is this true, bleaching bum holes?
no, is
Yes,
that right?
bleaching
Yes.
them in LA.
David,
Do you
I don't know why I'm
about
looking at
this?
you.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. To what end?
To a pinker, cleaner end.
Porn
know, I
stars
don't
do. The
know.
porn stars bleach their
Bum hole.
rusty sheriff's badge.
I suppose...
Wow.
At least,
So,
at least for a porn star, it's tax deductible, I suppose.
Yeah.
OK, anyway, the ancient Greeks, they went commando. It was only in the later Middle Ages and in Victorian times that fig leaves were placed on statues. What's so upsetting about this film? Do you know what's going on here?
There are beetles.
Is it a disease?
It's not a disease. It was 1903, and it was a very popular science-ish film, but it outraged the cheese producers of the world.
Oh, it's bacillus cheese, and blue cheese.
It's cheese mites. It's actual little creatures, cheese mites, that exist in
Microscopic
cheese.
cheese mites?
Yeah.
So that's what cinema was like in 1903.
Amongst
It's what, 5 hours of footage of cheese mites. Sounds pretty good, apparently.
Amongst other things, but it was immense. It actually increased, I don't know what it did to the sales of cheese, possibly it wouldn't have helped them, but it increased the sales of cheap microscopes. People became fascinated about, you know, the little things that go on and they could see their own little swimming things. But I remember a documentary, this suddenly occurs to me, that your father, Eric Thompson, narrated, called something like The Life That Lives in Man. Did you remember that?
It was all about the tiny little
things that live in the follicles of the...
Like billions and billions
Yeah.
of things in our beds all the time, even
Yeah.
if you do turn your mattress as I do every month.
I don't think turning a mattress is going to kill the things unless they're
No, but, you know, the Titanic of the insect world, it's coming.
Yeah, and in your eyelashes? We all have little creatures living in our eyelashes.
It's like there's one of those adverts that sort of says there are more germs on your chopping board than on your loo seat.
Yeah.
To which the answer is, well, clearly that's fine then.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not all dying or
No.
constantly having diarrhea.
Exactly.
We
So
are
essentially...
starting to die because we're cleaning them up too much.
Exactly.
Yeah, well,
if
essentially
anything.
they're saying in the advert the very thing we are selling you is unnecessary.
Yes. Exactly right, because it's fine. Yeah, well, the fact is there was a big sort of excitement about this, except for the cheese producers who tried to suppress the film because it showed that in cheese, which is a living organic thing, of course, it contains these special mites that live there and do you no harm at all. Cheese is a good thing. Now, who remembers Charlton Heston? How was Michelangelo lying when he painted the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel? Yes.
Did he not did it? He didn't do it, he just lied about it, he fibbed.
That is the sense of lying we wanted. He certainly didn't lie down to do it, as he did in the Charlton Heston movie, The Agony and the Ecstasy, which you may have seen.
Did he jump up and do it a bit at a time?
He didn't... No, he is... Well, yeah, he stood on the scaffolding and did it that way and cricked his neck. And Vasari writes about it in his biography. But there is, apparently, it seems, some extraordinary little secret joke that Michelangelo painted in the fabric behind God. There's God with a bit of sort of swaggy stuff behind him. Now, that swaggy stuff, according to at least 4 professors who are neuroscientists, neurosurgeons from 4 universities, are absolutely convinced that that particular shape, do you know what it might be?
Female part?
No, it's not a female part. For once in QI's life, we're not in the downstairs lady area.
Is it a brain?
Brain! It is the transverse section of the sagittal area of the brain. What it argues is that he was present at some dissections, which were very popular, but completely illegal in Italy at this time. And the suggestion is that his idea of God, one of God's greatest miracles, was, of course, the human brain, which he had seen sliced through. And so he has God, literally, if you take away the brain now from that superimpositions. So there you are, yeah, it seems to be a bit of brain, but there are other bits. You know, there's a museum in Oregon which is dedicated to replications of the brain made of fabrics. It's an odd type of museum. We can actually show you a perfect brain with brainstem made by some American knitting person. There you are.
Yeah.
Brilliant, including brainstem. That's what's impressive.
Are you sure that's just not the most unsuccessful attempt at a cardigan ever?
Something of a disaster.
And they sort of go, no, it's meant to, it's a brain.
It's a mad granny. It actually genuinely has a po-faced warning on the website showing it, saying this is a perfect reproduction of the human brain using applique, embroidery, beadwork, knitting and crochet. While our artists make every effort to ensure accuracy, we cannot accept responsibility for the consequences of using fabric brain art as a guide for functional magnetic resonance imaging.
or indeed home-based surgery.
Either you've got a tumour or they've dropped a stitch.
Yeah, it seems that Michelangelo may have been lying about his illegal dissecting activities, though why he would risk painting a huge piece of incriminating evidence on the ceiling of the Pope's chapel is anybody's guess. Which brings us blinking out of the darkened theatre and into the blinding light of general ignorance, so fingers on buzzers, please. What happens to a hedgehog if you remove its fleas? David.
It dies.
David-y, woo. No, there is a myth to this effect, but it's not true at all.
Ah.
It's perfectly possible if you covered it with anti-dog flea powder, it would die from the dog flea powder, but not from the lack of fleas. They're very happy with their fleas. It doesn't kill them with or without. What mustn't you feed hedgehogs?
Bread and milk.
Exactly, bread and milk is a bad idea. People do it. It gives them diarrhea and they dry out.
Shouldn't really feed bread and milk to any mammal, including humans.
But there is a Radio 4 show
Oh,
that deals...
come off it.
No,
Well, you
it's true.
shouldn't feed humans bread and milk.
No, not
Oh,
really.
What do you mean, not really? It's absolutely demonstrably fine.
No, it's not very good for you.
Well, it's fine.
Bread and butter
I've been
pudding.
drinking milk and eating bread for ages. Why is it suddenly a massive problem? Oh,
Yeah.
no, actually, we're supposed to live till we're 250. But no, we're eating all this poisonous bread and milk all the time. We can barely limp past 98. It's ridiculous. Of course we're supposed to eat bread and milk. Not just bread and milk.
Oh, poor Alan.
No,
Don't
no.
bully him. Poor Alan.
It's not...
You shake hands and be friends
Sorry,
now.
Alan.
So, despite what you may have heard on Radio 4's programme,
Yes.
presented by David Mitchell, what's your programme called?
The unbelievable truth.
Exactly.
One of the unbelievable truths turns out unbelievably
Yes,
to
you
be
claimed.
not true.
You claimed.
Yeah, just people give you this shit and you read it out.
It's brilliant.
I've no idea what you mean. Anyway, we are very happy to put you right on your otherwise excellent programme. In fact, hedgehogs don't mind whether they have fleas or not, although they wouldn't be very happy if you poisoned them with flea powder. Now, Shakespeare mentions the football twice. How often does he mention the cricket?
He doesn't mention the cricket because it didn't exist then.
Cricket certainly existed in the 16th century.
Oh, right.
In 1550, there's a mention of cricket, and that's before...
Are you sure that's not the small insect?
3 times he mentions the insect, you're absolutely right. But not the game. He never mentions the game, to be honest.
So
but
to
it
be
did
honest,
exist.
That never, I said, was right, and I got massive...
No, you asserted on the 26th of May, Mr. Mitchell, that the game of cricket didn't exist in Shakespeare time. It did, although Shakespeare doesn't mention it.
So
Yeah.
is this whole round? Because radio shows don't have the same budget, you know, so there's fewer people. If you want to kill off the medium, then that's fine, but it brings a lot of people a lot of pleasure.
Shakespeare mentions the cricket 3 times, though he was, of course, referring to the insect. But the game did exist in his day, despite what you may have heard on The Unbelievable Truth. The excellent, excellent Radio 4 programme.
Yes, it is excellent.
Which I would urge you all to listen to. Now, what kind of hair do head lice prefer? Yes.
Clean hair.
Did you say clean hair? Oh, I'm sorry. No, there was, you see, there was this... Originally, people thought it was dirty hair. This was repudiated, and it was replaced by another fallacy that it was clean hair they prefer. Any hair will do to a louse. They don't mind, as long as there's an adequate blood supply. There's no preference either for clean or dirty.
The hair on a living person.
In fact, basically, you have to be alive and have hair. What are nits?
I thought the same
It
thing.
was a slang term
Same
for
thing.
No, nits are the egg cases. And they stay on, you can't get rid of them. They'll stay on sometimes for weeks and weeks after the actual louse has escaped. Now, how does a flu jab work?
It gives you a minor version of the illness.
Oh, no, it doesn't. That's the point. It doesn't give you mild case of flu. Oddly enough, it's not that kind of a vaccine. Most people think it is, and they often think they've been given flu by the jab because it might happen that they get the jab around the time flu is arriving in the country. And it's perfectly possible to get real flu at the same time, and you'll assume it's the jab that's given it to you. But in fact, it's an inert, inactive virus, so you have no flu. It doesn't give you flu, but it's enough.
But even though it's inert, your body
It's still enough
makes
to
the
get your antibodies
Right.
prepared for it, but only for that particular strain. Anyway, what's the most depressing day of the week in research? Yes?
Monday.
What did you... Oh! Oh, I'm sorry, no.
Sort of obvious.
Oddly enough, if you ask people, which they think
Yeah.
is the most depressing day of the week, they will say Monday. But
Sunday.
if you then ask even the same people over a long period of time, and then a lot of them, on each separate day, are they more depressed today or yesterday? Or that? It overwhelmingly is...
Tuesday.
No, oddly enough, Wednesday. It seems to be... I mean, you could argue it's because... In fact, there's a French joke. Why should you never arrange a meeting with an Englishman on a Wednesday? Because you'll screw up 2 weekends of his, basically, because they think of us as very lazy. Yeah, I know.
Do they?
Do they? Yes, how dare they?
Well, it's not, you know, I know obviously we're always keen to slag each other off as countries, but
lazy's
lazy,
odd.
I don't think we are, and I don't think we don't think they're lazy. We
No,
think they're
not
sort of
particularly.
cowardly, idiotic, and riddled with
Cheese eating.
you know, venereal
Diseases.
diseases.
And finally, bringing us back to film, which popular film made by the British multinational Innovia Films Limited, made more than 360 million this year, and made about as much the year before as well.
A film?
Yeah, made by the Innovia Film Company. I've seen it. In fact, you've seen it.
It's not like some teach the Chinese English thing.
No. Here it is.
Cellophane.
Cellophane. It's a British thing.
That is the most successful ever British film.
Yeah, obviously, apart from Nanny McPhee, obviously. Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
You know the word lovey?
Yeah.
What do you all feel about it?
I mean, I'm not going to get as upset as some actors do. Some actors say, we do a bloody hard job of work.
Yeah.
We're serious people. It's a coalface doing a play. How dare they call us lovies? You know, I mean, that's a bit overdone. On the other hand, it's a bit tedious when, you know, the Daily Mail says lovey couple X, Y and Z or something. Well, you get it.
Do you know what the first citation of it is in the OED?
No.
It's you. I can't believe did I Yeah,
invent
it's
the
you.
word?
It's sometime in the 1980s.
Did I? I'm ashamed. On that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to tot up the box office takings for this evening and see... Oh, my word, it's absolutely fascinating. This week's blockbuster, this week's winner, ladies and gentlemen, with plus 4 points, is Alan Davis! How about that? In second place, a modest success on the art house circuit, John Sessions with 1. Garnering a few points at a festival you've never heard of, but a very creditable first appearance. Minus 10, Emma Thompson.
-10?
And I'm afraid going straight to video with minus 15, David Mitchell. So, it's good night from Emma, John, David, Alan and me, and huge thanks to our mothers and agents and everybody who believed in us and made it possible. You're all wonderful, you're all family, and I leave you with this account of a successful family publicity stunt. The great American showman P.T. Barnum created an exhibit entitled The Happy Family, which consisted of a cage containing a lion, a tiger, a panther, and a baby lamb, which was extremely successful. And one day he was asked about his plans for The Happy Family, which had toured everywhere. The display will become a permanent feature, he said, if the supply of lambs holds out. Good night.
And can now catch up on the entire first series of QI with this BBC DVD. Woody Harrelson stars in tonight's film about Garrison Keillor's last radio show, comedy in a prairie home companion, next on BBC Two.